Okay, Jeanette or G, are you ready to start? Got the recording started here.
Hello?
Okay, we're ready. We started the recording.
Fantastic.
Welcome to ASD's Water Dowser Mastermind Conference Call. These talks, open to everyone, are scheduled for the third Monday of each month at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and last for about an hour. Today is the 16th of March, 2020. I'm G from Northern California Dowsers in Redding, California. Our website is norcaldowsers.com. Jeanette and I will be joining your hosts, Sharon Hope and Ed Stillman, for tonight's program featuring Sue Trumpfheller. This will be recorded and accessible at ASD's website under the Members Only section. Please hold your questions until the end of the guest speaker's talk. And now I'm turning the program over to Sherry.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm glad to have you all here. And let's see, we've got some announcements this evening. And first, we're going to start out with Roxanne Louise, the ASD president. So go ahead, Roxanne.
Yes, thank you. Raymond Grace is going to be on our teleconference tomorrow. The topic is stretching our limits. And I think Raymond, of course, is a very popular presenter who's been on the water dowsing call, and I'm having him come talk about other things. He will mention some things about water, but the real reason is that what Raymond does for all of us is he stretches our belief in what we can do. And so in hearing some of the amazing things he's done, it encourages us to say, well, what if it could work? What if I could do this? And in just that thought and say, okay, well, let me try. Let me see, how would I approach it? And then maybe we can duplicate some amazing things ourselves. So I think I'm going to be asking him about the mindset and the attitude that allow him to do what he does. I'm going to ask him about the things he thinks gets in the way, his approach to a number of situations. People want to know his take on coronavirus and 5G and neutralizing the negative effect, such as on mass consciousness, which is rampant right now, the mass consciousness of fear. And so I think it should be a really exciting evening. It's tomorrow. A different phone number. You can check the Facebook page either for Dowsers West Coast or American Society of Dowsers Facebook discussion group, or go right on the website dowsers.org. Now, the recording of tonight and tomorrow will probably not be up as soon as it normally is, as our office manager has the flu and home for a few days. It's nothing serious, but it is the flu, so it's going to take a couple of days for her to get better. And then in April, on the 14th, Alice Harwood is going to be on the call, and then Ellen Comey, who is a herbalist, who's talked a lot about things we can do, dowsing for herbs and natural remedies, is the 21st. So that's it, in addition to the two conferences coming up, ASD on June 3rd through 7th, in Plymouth State University in Plymouth, New Hampshire, and, of course, Santa Cruz Conference coming up the weekend of July 4th. So that's it, and thank you for letting me make those announcements.
Thank you, Roxanne. Good to have you on. That sounds very interesting. So remember tomorrow night, everybody, Raymond Grace. And let's see here, Sharon Mahaney, our editor of the ASD Digest. She has an announcement. You have to dial *6, Sharon. You there? Okay, let me see if I can get her on. Okay, well, we're waiting for Sharon Mahaney to come on. How about you, Scott? Are you ready to make your announcement?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, very good. I'm Scott Pierce. I'm on the nominating committee for awards this year with Mary Petty and Leroy Bull. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 9 categories. If you look at your February 28th email from ASD that announced all these awards, if you have somebody out there who did some fantastic things in these categories, like Dowser of the Year, Volunteer of the Year, Education of the Year, and so on, send that information to ASD@dowser.org, and will be forwarded to us, and we'll look at your nominees and what they've done. So it's based on the award, be based on 2019, and all this information has to be in by May 1st. So if you can find your email on February 28th, it has all the information on the awards we're going to send the awards to. So that's it on this end.
Okay, thank you very much, Scott. So get those nominations in for awards. Okie doke. So Sharon Mahaney, are you on yet? Okay, well, I'm going to announce our next meeting, which is April 20th. And on that particular day, we're going to have water dowser Gary Plapp, and he will also be one of the instructors at the basic school at the West Coast Conference. So I just want to let you know that. And so it's going to be the same phone number. So third Monday of April. And that'll be Gary Plapp. It'll be very interesting because I think Gary and Ed have a lot in common because they both do water dowsing and scientific dowsing. So that should be very interesting. Okay. Sharon Mahaney, are you on? Okay. Tell you what, let's go ahead and we'll have Sharon make her announcement towards the end then if she gets back on. So I'm not sure what happened. She may have gotten a phone call or something. Okay, but I know she does need some articles. We've got about 2 more weeks max. Really need to get them in right away. So if you have any dowsing stories, even short ones that take a half a page or 1 page, that's great. So we need some new stories. And if you've got something about water dowsing, like you've gone on a water dowsing job and it was interesting, so go ahead and write that up as to what tools you used, how you did it, and, something about, the area and the people that you dowsed for and what their reaction was. And did you teach them how to douse? Okay, all these things are very interesting. So, okay, Sharon Mahaney, are you on? Thought I heard her come on. Okay. Okay, wait just a minute here. Okay, we'll have Sharon do her announcement later. Of course, I did part of it already, but okay, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Ed, and let you introduce Sue.
Okay. Well, first, it's my pleasure to introduce our featured guest speaker today, Sue Trumpfheller. Sue has been a dowser for 50 years. She's the author of 6 books on dowsing and has also written workbooks and articles on dowsing. Sue was an ASD trustee in the 90s, and in 2003, ASD presented Sue with the Dowser of the Year award. She was also president and program chairman of the Orange County, California chapter for 15 years. Sue is a dowsing consultant, and she uses the pendulum when coaching her clients and doing space clearings. Sue is also a product developer. She has created chi patterns and uses these special energy devices for her clients' well-being. These energy devices were inspired by Don Gerard and the Paper Doctor. Sue is also trained in radionics and alchemy and has created several dozen tinctures and devices. Welcome, Sue, and please tell us how you got started in dowsing. Please proceed.
Thanks, Ed.
Okay.
I'm a self-taught dowser. I read a magazine article in either Woman's Day, Family Circle on how to dowse. And that's held me for 20 years until I found another book on dowsing. So anybody in my life that dowsed, I taught them. And it wasn't until many years later that I discovered ASD and the Orange County chapter with Virginia Baker. And I just keep exploring. I've written a book, 99 Ways to Use the Pendulum, and that just touches the surface. So I've done all kinds of dowsing. But, yeah, I just don't give up. Somebody throws me a bullet, and I say, okay, let's see where we can go with this. So I'm always exploring with my dowsing. A few years ago when Southern California was suffering severe drought, Carol Assa and I set up a site on Facebook called Virtual Rain Dancer, and our intention was to bring people together to send energies to the planet and bring water in. And a few years later, we had lots of rain. But what I have done, and I really appreciate Facebook because I have found, and I take all the articles that I find on water and post them on Virtual Rain Dancers. And it's connected me with dowsers all over the world, India, Italy, Spain, England, Scotland, on and on, plus across the United States. So I've really enjoyed meeting all these dowsers. But one of the articles that Carol and I posted early on was on primary water. And I kept noticing that when I listen to water dowsers, and I've even asked many if they dowse for primary water, and I get strange looks, I guess I'll say, because they mostly go for groundwater. Now, I'm in Southern California, so people in the eastern shore and have a more access to groundwater. There's no have-tos, shoulds. So I keep asking, and so I'm promoting primary water because it really doesn't run out. And to give you an example, about 30 miles down the road from me is a lake, Lake Elsinore. And you might remember the name Bill Cox and Vern Cameron. Vern Cameron designed the orometer. And they were hired to restore water to Lake Elsinore. And I found out, I knew they had 3 wells, or 2 wells. Found out yesterday that the first well they drilled was 5,500 gallons per minute, and they were dowsing primary water. And then the second 2 wells they dowsed were 2,000 gallons per minute, which has kept that lake, which is 3 miles by 1.5 miles, filled pretty successfully over the years. That's a lot of water to come in and in a well. the tricky part of the dowsing or drilling for primary water is, you have to go through the crevices to. It's not just a straight shot with a borehole. So that's just one example of the primary water that has been found. I had Pat Delafield douse for a well in Mexico, and she got 100 gallons a minute. So there's all sorts of places around the country and around the world where dowsers can tap into these water sources, even when some of the areas go dry. There's other water. I'm always looking for stories. One of the, Culligan, Culligan Water Company. Mr. Culligan was a dowser, and he doused all the water along the west coast. And then one of the guys in our chapter, John Hogarty, doused all of the California. So there's a lot of water that runs into the ocean from California. San Onofre, which is now closed as an atomic power plant, they liked it because they could take their hot water and out to the ocean to cool it down. But there's another source of water, which I call it pirate water, just because you'll help you remember. But if you're out in the ocean at sea for a long period of time, there's ways to watch the currents in the ocean, and you can get fresh water. So that's how the pirates could not go ashore and would get their water restored to their ships. And many have done it. I have never asked the Navy if that's what they do when they're at sea, but that's a source of fresh water. And in Southern California, there's several shipwrecks because as they were coming in to sea, they got caught up in storms and crashed. So dowsers have found lots of shipwrecks along the coast down here, Oceanside and whatever. Carol Baker was big on that, finding those ships. And I don't know if the pirates were dowsers or not. I don't have any idea. But it's interesting to know that you can go to sea and still get fresh water. And the primary water is safe. And for a great introduction and all the chemistry of primary water is go to primarywater.org, and there's a gentleman that does about a 50-minute presentation on of the whole dynamics of primary water and how it develops. It's water deep in the earth that moves to the surface under pressure. So it will it goes against many people's thinking that we're short on water when it really, I'll call it, grows and develops deep in the earth and comes up for us to use. I would say I'm a collector of stories, and one of the stories I loved was General George Patton. When he was in North Africa, he sent one of his aides off to get a forked stick. Well, the guy came back with a tree, but the reason he needed that was so he could find water for his troops, because in North Africa it was, this is the early 40s, they were out of water, and he was very cautious and to make sure that his troops always had water. Even when he was here in California, he made sure that that base that he set up east of me had plenty of water. And there's a museum to him in east of Indio, about 25 miles, where all his goodies, shall we say. I went to it, but it was closed the day I went through. So, but Virginia Baker has been, and several others have been. So if you're down in Southern California and want a real strange experience, go to General Patton's Museum east of Indio, which is Palm Springs area. So there's all kinds of water stories, and I've been at about 30 dowsing conferences over the years, and always had great stories and learned so much. Joan McFarland and Carl Bracey, we were trustees together, and we'd sit around at night and talk, and you know stories that dowsers can give. One of the water geniuses, I would call him, is Victor Schauberger. And as Tesla is to electricity, Victor Schauberger is to water. And there's several books he's written and others have written about him. And he was a forest ranger in Austria. And he would, he was also a very diligent observer. And so when his boss wanted the logs cut up from the forest, he figured out a way, rigged the chute, and to bring the logs down from the forest rather than putting them on a truck and dragging him down that way. And so he did an ingenious concept is the shape of the what do I want to call it, the chute, and also he would test the water for temperature, and if the water got too hot, he'd have to put cooled water in so to keep the logs moving down the chute. But one of the things, and he's got all kinds of devices that if you follow any of the work he's done, but one of the things that he observed, which I found fascinating, was that a mountain stream, actually flows in two directions, and he was watching the trout as they swam in the current. So if you can think of it's like yin and yang of the water flowing down the stream, and we always think it just goes in one direction, but there's ways in which there's other elements or layers in the stream where the fish swim upstream. So there's I use it as an example of like crossing my arms, and you can see, where the flow of the river goes. And his son and his grandson are working in a research lab in Germany, Austria, I'm not sure which. And so if you want to go investigate him, and there's a great introductory book. I've read all of Schauberger's works. Sometimes they're way over my head, but I read them anyhow. But there's an author from Sweden who wrote a simplistic book on Schauberger called Living Water. So there's all these layers and elements of water that often doesn't get discussed or explored. And I think we as dowsers have a great opportunity to work with water. One of the systems is flow forms, where you can clean up your water just by changing the flow of the water. And they send it in like rivulets. If you're in Santa Cruz, there's a park in Santa Cruz that has a fountain, I call it a fountain, that runs on the principle of the flow form. And so there's all these different systems within the world of water in which it's so powerful and not recognized, I guess, respected. I was talking to Richard Roy 2 years ago, and he was telling how the wells that he doused in Haiti were the people, they'd bring their farm animals up, and he said, no, you can't do that. You contaminate your wells. So I guess I have a passion for honoring the water, and so I just think we need more education or more honoring the spirituality of water. And Emoto was a great example when he did his freezing the drop of water, and you could see the different shapes depending on the energy put into the water. And so you can see the power that the water holds for us, and it's almost a medicine. And yet, that's a nasty word. But there's ways to work with it and to adjust it. And I ran across a gentleman who's done his research on flowing water, on memory of water, and that I've just posted on the virtual rain dancers. There's all kinds of articles on that. How some areas they're catching dew water and feeding or providing water for the community. And there's one of a young man digging a hand well and how he builds it up and catches water. There's so many interesting articles out there that you can find. Well, I found. And so I really appreciate Facebook and all the connections I've made and what they've done for us for water. If you have somebody in your life that is doubtful about dowsing, I would recommend you have them read Secret Life of Plants. The reason for that is that if you watch how the water and the plants work together, you can really see the subtle energies with which we as dowsers work with. And I think it's a good education. Cleve Baxter did his work with the lie detector in San Diego, and he was a character. I had the fortunate of calling his office one day, and the secretary was out, and so I spent an hour on the phone talking to him and about all the work that he was doing. And so the first chapter in Secret Life of Plants is about all the work that Cleve did with the plants, and just say, I'm going to burn you, and never doing it. So that gives you a little hint on the power of our thoughts and the power that we can have on our environment. And we're in a time now where we need to use all those skills and techniques that we've acquired over the years. that's, what do I say, so valuable in today's world, on what we have and what we can do. Is there any questions, or do you want me to go on? I mean, I could go.
Yeah, go ahead, because you got a bit of time for it. We'll open it for questions.
Oh, okay. Well,
I mean, if you want to talk about what you do with your own water, like do you get bottled water? Do you have a well? What do you do with your water?
My water. I live in a gated senior community, the other side of the mountain from Palm Springs, and I have 2 water filters. One is a Berkey, and one is a zero filter. If you know Mike Adams of Natural News, he did a test on probably 15 or 20 water filters to see which ones and what percentage of glyphosate the water filters removed from the water. And fortunately, there was one I'd never heard of, and then the Berkey and the zero. So I don't buy bottled water. I mean, I have some bottles in reserve, but I would run them through my filter before I use them. But so all my water is run through the filters, and when I go, I take a glass jar with me. So my friends go. They laugh at me because most people don't take their water from home, and they buy these plastic bottles of water, and they're not water dowsers. So I know that the water that I carry with me is safe and beneficial, and that's the key words that I use with when I'm dowsing my food and my water, all the water I use to cook with. I would say I'm picky, but I want my food and my water to be safe, and I've been testing all that for 30, 40 years. So,
well, that's good. Explain. We may have new people on here, so if you could explain exactly what you do and what dowsing tools you use when you douse your food and your water.
Well, I primarily use a pendulum, but I use all the tools. The Y rod is, which is a forked branch or plastic, it can be, is a little more difficult to use. The L rods, which are the swing rods, those are great except in the wind, and so I use those rods when I'm out in the field or working with a body, shall we say. It's great for measuring auras. I love the bobber, and the bobber travels with me in the car because you can use a bobber with one hand and the other hand on the steering wheel. Don't tell anybody I do this. And what I use when I go shopping is I use my fingers, my stick with my fingers, and if you have never done that before, it's quite simple. Is you rub your finger and your thumb against one another and say, "Body, please show me a yes," and "Body, please show me a no," and you will get different recording, shall we say. It'll stick or not stick. There's no have-tos. Mine is a yes. When I rub my fingers and thumb together, is a yes, is sticky, and my no is it doesn't stick. But you can have both differences in the in your body response. And so I will walk down the aisle of the grocery store or a bookstore and say, "Is there anything here I need?" sometimes I don't do a shopping list. And I've done that with bookstores, and it's amazing what books show up. And, is this one would this book be beneficial for me? Is this lettuce beneficial and safe? Not all the non-organic is bad. So that's why I use my fingers to press. And what I've done, interesting, I found that for years I've been dousing my olive oil. This was long before they came out with the olive oil is one of those fraud products that come out of Italy and whatever, and they dilute them, and so that not all olive oil is great. But for some reason, I started dousing all my olive oil, safe and beneficial. And I could go over a whole shelf and not find a bottle of olive oil that was safe and beneficial. And yet other times I get, mini bottles. So, just because one bottle or one product is good doesn't make everything on the shelf good. So I'm always testing stuff. My daughter and I have been known to stand in the aisle of the health food store and do some muscle testing on each other. And the questions you ask are critical. And that's one of the important things when you're dowsing for water. You want to find it safe and beneficial. But also, is it to use in your garden, or is it to use for drinking and for your own health? You set an intention in your question. So when I was looking for the olive oil, for example, it would be, is this bottle safe and beneficial? And because any water that I buy at the store, the gallon bottles to have a water backup. I will run it through my filters before I'll drink it. That's just what I've done, and I'm chairman of the community emergency response in my community. We have 149 homes, and I got them to buy 2 Berkey filters. We have a pool, and so in an emergency, and I live in earthquake neighborhood, so you've got to have and know your source. But I got 2 Berkey water filters, so we can, and that's safe. We can make the pool water safe for everybody in the community. And as most of you probably know, water is one of the essentials. You can live a couple of days without water, but not very long. I don't remember there's a code. Food you can do without, and sleep you can do without, and da-da-da. So I have them. I'm teaching the class about skills in an emergency, and water is one of the essentials in an emergency. So
definitely.
So when you live, and with what's happening now, one of the things that I'm noticing is that everybody's going after toilet paper, and I'm going, oh, for crying out loud, 97% of our antibiotics come from China. I think we'd better start looking at what we have in our reserve. I'm a big advocate for being prepared. My first earthquake I experienced in the 6th floor of a hotel in Manila, and I have been astute about earthquakes ever since. And so when you live in earthquake territory, you have a different awareness than you do for, I don't have to plow snow or I don't have a snowstorm. But so there's different reasons to be aware and prepared to have your water, and don't eat yellow snow, right?
Don't eat any snow now.
No, that's right. You don't want any snow with all the chemtrails and all those other things that we've got going on. So keeping yourself safe and prepared. But I think that knowing that there is a source of water, like primary water, we can't be sold a bill of goods that we're going to suffer from drought when there is water available. And I just like to see more dowsing around the primary water. Somebody said to me the other day, but isn't it more expensive to drill for primary water? Yeah, probably it is. But the volume and the quality of the water is phenomenal. So if you go to primarywater.org, there are all sorts of resources and videos talking about that water as a source. So I would add it if you're out looking for water. I would add that as part of one of my intentions. Is would the best source of water in this, I'll just say this field, is it primary or groundwater? So you can compare the availability of one or the other, and then present, if you have a client, then you present the alternative to the client and say, well, I can get you this volume and this at this cost, and then I can get you groundwater at this cost. So you can have some comparisons for them when they invest in their well. And I talked to a woman years ago that lived on a farm in Riverside County, and what she was saying was that their well was they keep having to re-drill because the water level was going down. So there's been lots of tapping into other people's water source, and so you can. You probably have you run across that, Sharon? People.
Oh yeah, I've run across older wells that have gone dry. Yeah. Sometimes I'm actually able to divert water into the existing hole in the ground. So
that's a good thing.
Interesting too. Now, what would you say the main difference is between primary and just the regular aquifers?
Well, what I'm seeing is the volume of water available. The quality would be better in the fact that it doesn't contaminate it by the ground through which it's flowing. I would say that's primarily less contamination. Yeah. I had another thought. It's just disappeared.
Okay, so if you were going to go out and douse for primary water, what would you do? What would be your process?
Well, a basic question is identify a source of primary water, and you might have a minimum flow, safe water. Usually it's safe. Primary water is safe. Typical. I can't even pull up right now my question. Shame on me.
No, that's okay.
I just went blank. Oh, I know what I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
Which is, I don't know back east what they run into with water permits and water, mineral, and timber rights. But on the West Coast, you just don't have any right to drill if you don't have your water rights. And I read that many people in Northern California were selling, because the drought was so bad and they were in such dire financial straits, that they were selling their water rights. And I just went screaming and went, don't sell your water rights.
Exactly.
Lease them. Lease your water rights. Lease your other rights, but don't sell them, because you don't get them back, right? And the value and the availability is so rare. And it's like, in these days, it's like our old day of oil. Having water rights is essential. And so that's my advice to people, is don't sell your water rights.
Okay.
Or mineral, or, yeah. Yeah. So that's my, I thought I had more, but all of a sudden I'm blanking. I can't remember all the stories. Well, that's one of the stories.
Okay.
One of the stories I had was my son was buying a house, and I dowsed not to buy it, and he got a little bonkers, and I said, but my children always call me to douse for him, and I said, don't buy that house. He said, okay, Mom, why not? And so I doused two things. One was there was a water problem, and one was the foundation problem. And after they did an engineering checking, and he met the landlord, every sink in the house leaked, and the foundation was sinking. So he did not buy that house. So you never know where the problems are going to show up. And I've done a lot of work with houses, so but you never know where these problems are going to come. And he found another house, but he didn't buy that one. But so yeah. So I'm always checking for living conditions for everybody.
Great. Okay, Ed, did you have some questions for Sue?
Oh, I'm very pleased that you're back. And what is the deepest water that you've actually taken a good drilling on? How much have you gone down and ever?
I haven't, Ed. I'm not a water dowser.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've never said drill here. I've doused wells.
Interesting. That's interesting.
I've doused wells, but I've never said drill here.
Okay.
Now, Carl and Joan were on my yes. And so I did Carl's well. I did find it. Of course, he'd already drilled it. But living in Orange County in California, the demand for water is you can't douse for a well in most properties in Orange County and many other places in Southern California unless you have your water rights and you live on acreage. So my opportunity living in Southern California has not been very good for dowsing for water. Now I will back people up. I'll back them up and confirm, I'm a sous chef for a dowser, but I'm not I'm not the primary. So.
Well, that was
but you know what I can do.
That is a very nice learning experience for everybody that's listening today, too. Because you're doing a different approach to it, and yet it's very successful.
Yes.
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 All right. Thank you for
and
responding
I can remember
to
the first time I used a Y rod. Carol Baker had a Dowsers meeting, and we all had Y rods. And I had never used a Y rod, and he had us walk across the field at the park, and it was so interesting. As you know, your peripheral vision is attuned when you're doing dowsing, or mine is, and we were walking, and I saw all the Y rods drop at the same time, and we found out later we were going over a pipe in the ground.
Aha.
So,
excellent.
You know, there's great ways to test yourself and have people work with you. I had a neighbor, and he had a water leak, and he had a driveway that started in the back of the house and went all the way down the side and out to the street. They called a plumber, and the guy said, "You've got a leak, da-da-da, and we're going to have to drill up the driveway." So I got brave and gutsy and went out and said, "Well, now if you need any help finding where that break in the pipe is, let me know because I can douse it." He says, "Oh, no, I know how to do that too." But I might have saved that guy a lot of money because my son-in-law uses dowsing all the time. He's in concrete work, and he's always dowsing for pipes and wires. The interesting thing is they don't call them dowsing rods. They're pipe locators. And if you look at you look at a plumbing catalog, and you can find all these. Most often they use rebar, and so in the catalogs you look for the pipe locator and not for the dowsing rod. And they run $35 to $45 for one of these dowsing rods. And they're a whole lot cheaper everywhere else.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, Sue, what is your favorite thing to douse for?
Oh. No, you can't ask that question.
I can't.
After having written all the 2 books on 99 ways to use the pendulum, 99 more ways to use the pendulum, I would say that not much passes in my world that I don't douse for.
Fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yes, I had some health challenges a couple years ago, and when I went to the doctor the first time, I told him I was a dowser and that I check everything. And he's an osteopath, and it's interesting the questions he asks me because I test all my pills. I don't take everything he prescribes. I doused one that I wasn't supposed to take at all and read later that they were finding problems with it. So I keep getting reinforced in my dowsing, by my dowsing, for medications that aren't helpful for me. So he now says, "Well, you don't want to do this and you're not going to do that." I said, "No, I won't do that." There's lots of medical procedures that they want you to have and do. And before, he always runs it by me first because he knows I'll use my dowsing, my pendulum to test it.
Great.
So when, he gives me some samples and he said, test these out and see how they work for you. Challenge the doctor as well.
Now, one of the things I found useful in reading some of your material was to ask is it safe for me too?
Right.
So I found that even more valuable than can I, may I, should I.
Oh, yeah. I douse everything. Is it safe? Is it beneficial? And when you think of how broad those terms can be and what they mean, when I did that workshop a few years ago, I think you and I talked about that. Is it safe and is it beneficial? And
right.
Yeah. And that's been my sort of my byword through all my books. And Ed likes my books.
Oh, you bet I do. Got them in the bookshelf.
I remember one year in Flagstaff, and you said, "Sue, I'm going to talk about your book. I hope you don't mind." You were teaching teachers.
Yes.
Yeah. So where can people get your books?
I have a website called pendulumdowsingproducts.com, and I have books there. I have a couple of books on color, then the 99 Ways, and then the book Discover the Pendulum, and then I have 2 ebooks. One is I call it Decision Secrets, and that's about using touch plate or stick plate dowsing.
Okay.
And the other book that's an ebook is Dowsing Your Pain Field, and I've had some interesting experiences with dowsing your pain field, because you can really, through your dowsing, reduce the pain field. I had a friend in the hospital, and he didn't have to use morphine because I went in and took his pain field, reduced it from, a big, huge, I call it a refrigerator box, down to a cigar box over his body. So he was able to go home early and not have to do medication. So it's not, quote, healing or curing or anything. It's just reducing the trauma around the body. And I think that's one of the things. If you can reduce the trauma, well, the world's full of trauma right now.
Definitely.
Yeah, so it's
that's
one way
sure.
to...
Okay, so you're going to be at the West Coast Conference, correct?
At this point, yes.
So,
I won't tell you what I doubt.
What will you be talking about?
I'll do a talk on color, which I've been doing for many years, and the power of color and how it impacts your health, your environment, and all that. And then my second talk is one called Chart Your Health, and I've been designing charts for years, and so we did this in a workshop 4 years ago, I think, and teaching people how to design the charts. And one of the ones that was so powerful was people, and I give them the class blank charts so they can make their own. But the one we explored in class was sleeping. And so many people are complaining about having sleeping problems. So we went through all the possibilities of why somebody wasn't sleeping. Could be medical reasons. It could be the TV in their room, or a ley line, or an energy vortex under their bed, or whatever. And we just listed all those on the chart, and then they could go home and douse their challenge and figure out what they needed to do. So Chart Your Health is another, and I've taught, I think I've been to over 30 conferences and talked at all of them. So I've got lots of lists of different classes I've taught, but this time I'm doing Chart Your Health and color. And then there's always, I'm always at a booth with thousands of questions to answer.
Okay. Okay, do you want to take questions from participants?
Sure.
Okay, so if anybody has a question, please dial *6 on your keypad there to unmute yourself. Okay, I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to unmute Sharon Mahaney here because she has an announcement to make.
Hey, you did it.
There you go.
Okay, Sharon, you can hear me this time, right?
I can.
Yay. Oh, my goodness.
Yay.
Anyway, I just wanted to let Dowsers know that we are accepting articles for the digest, and the digest is, of course, online now, and the next one is coming out shortly. I anticipate it being out by April 3rd, and another one will follow for the summer. So I'm kind of getting in whatever articles I can. If you can get them to me by next week, possibly I could get it in this first one. Otherwise, it will default to the summer. So as you said, articles can be anywhere from like a half a page to 6 pages. Like 200 to 800 words is typical. And the articles can be pretty much anything about dowsing. So personal anecdotes. We love stories about dowsing, things that worked for you, maybe things that didn't. If you have stories of other dowsers, it would be nice to get those documented. What your personal perspective is on dowsing, what your definition of dowsing is. I also love Raymond Grace's, techniques that work for me. That's the title of his book. Perhaps each of us has some techniques that work for us that we could share our processes with each other. It can be anything. It can be towards the scientific, where you talk about geopathic and subtle energies, toxins. Nowadays we're doing more environmental issues, things with water. Anyway, whatever relates to dowsing, we're open to it. And I would love to get articles in by March 19th and then again by April 20th. And you don't have to wait for a deadline to submit. Just send an article to editor@dowsers.org, and it'll get to us, and we'll edit it through the editorial team and then kick it out into the next digest. And if we have a slew of them, we might need to hold some back for future use. Otherwise, we're trying to kind of get those out. So editor@dowsers.org.
Okay, thank you very much, Sharon.
Thanks.
Okie doke. Let's see, do we have any questions?
I've got a
You have to
question.
do *6, right? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sue, when you were talking
Yes.
about the water coming up from the seabed to the surface, I'm wondering how that fresh water, why it isn't mixing with the salt water on its way up.
That's a good question, and I don't know.
Okay.
Except that it's obviously separated in some way. It's like this tunnel of it's like a spring sprouting up through the earth, only it sprouts up through the salt water. And why that happens, I don't know. I just know it does.
Well, I
Ed,
get.
do you have opinion on that? Ed, are you there?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Just wondered if you had opinion on it.
Well, it depends where that salt water really is. I mean, it has to be above when you get the salt water. So there's a number of things that go on just in how it lays out in the well site itself. I have found that I simply douse whether I have potable and non-salt water, and then I can get a very good idea for that well site what I'm dealing with before I even start doing anything. Before the driller comes to drill.
Ed, I think he's talking about in the ocean.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's even more difficult.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I heard about the primary water was that we have a subduction zone that goes under the coast of California. So it's slowly moving under the land. So it's carrying some, seawater with it. It's going to hit the area where it gets extremely hot. So that's going to turn into steam. So then you're going to have pure steam coming up. And then, so I believe it was Carl Bracey and several of the other older dowsers who said that when the steam comes up and it hits like an underground cave, and then it drips down and makes these like underground lakes. So that's what I assumed they were talking about was primary water. Basically, it's distilled water.
Yeah, but out in the ocean, the water, they said somebody referred to it like it bubbles up, so they can identify it from a distance where the fresh water is as it emerges in the salt water. It would be like you have a pipe and the water comes up through that pipe, but I don't know why. Sorry.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yes. I have a question about fracking. I've been told that they use a phenomenal amount of water in order to extract the gas. And I also heard that water is so polluted with chemicals it can never be used for drinking. But then there must, I believe Raymond, for example, has changed the impurities in water. Have any of you done that? Have dealt with purifying water that had been used for some other chemical purpose?
Ed, is that for you?
Well, Raymond has the ability to do that, and he has published his ways of doing that, and you can help yourself by learning it. He's going to be there to talk, so that's one thing to be sure and ask about.
Well, the water, whether it's from fracking or in some of these plastic bottles, this is Sue, all that can be cleared up and cleaned up. You can take the toxins out of it. You can neutralize there's all kinds of verbiage around neutralizing the toxins in the water after you get it out of the plastic bottle. And, as I do the water filter, but then I also do some more cleaning on the water that I get out of my filter. And I do that with energy, and I work with radionics, and so I clear the water. We've got water that comes out of your tap has.
So what's your verbiage?
I have a whole page of intentions for clearing up that water. And it's one of the cards that I make. I call it Simply Water. And it's on the website. And it's to neutralize the pharmaceuticals, the toxins in the water. I've been working with that since 2005, I think, and clearing up water. So it's a whole program, and then I take the program for clearing the water and put it in a pattern, and the pattern is tested to be clear, to clear out those toxins. So that's what I did.
Would that be the same then for rainwater that's coming down, that's full of chemtrails?
Yes.
And
yes.
Now you said this is, where can I find this?
That's on my website, pendulumdowsingproducts.com.
Okay, and what is it clearly marked what I would be looking for, or?
You go to Chi, or the other easiest access to it would be to go to chi-water.com, and that will take you to all my water patterns.
Thank you.
Okay, and you have some designs that I saw that I'm not sure how you use them.
How do I use? Well, I have many designs, and I worked with Don Gerard, and so we talked about, well, he was using, what was he using? Homeopathic. And so through him and what the work he was doing. And so I was approached by 3 gentlemen to design a product for them, and they wanted it to have energies in it. So they defined the energies, and I created a pattern for them to use on their product. So it's a dowsed pattern that has an energy field, and that field then alters the water on which it is applied to. So I have, one of the ones I have is called Fresh and Vital, and that goes in the refrigerator, and that keeps food fresher longer.
Wow.
The one example is somebody was at my house that ate cantaloupe, and I don't eat cantaloupe. And so when she left, I kept the cantaloupe in the refrigerator, and 23 days later, that cantaloupe was still able to be eaten, not by me, but somebody else. And mushrooms and lettuce and all your milk stays longer. So Fresh and Vital is used in the refrigerator. And then I've got one for sleeping and one for auto, clearing the field around your car when you're driving. And I go on and on.
Okay, great. You have a lot of good information, and I hope to get to your talk at the West Coast Conference. And
yes.
Is there any other information you wanted to give out, or any other websites or contact info?
Well, pendulumdowsingproducts.com will take you to my basic website, and then there's various divisions in there. So the pattern one is called Chi Patterns, and then I do house clearing and coaching.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. Ed, did you have any further questions or comments?
I am so pleased that you have been here and done an excellent talk. So I appreciate what you've done. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Always a pleasure.
Okay, Jeanette, can you come on the line here?
Yes, thank you so much. This is Jeanette from NorCal Dowsers, and I just want to thank you so much, Sue, for coming on to the Water Dowser conference call. I met Sue probably about, maybe 6 or 8 conferences ago, and Sue is so gracious. She gifts some of her products. She teaches, and if you take a class from her, she usually has a handout for you so we can all learn together. But one of her Chi patterns was sleep, and at the time, I just want to make a 40-hour day into 24 hours, so that's probably not ideal for long periods of time. But I did use your sleep Chi pattern, and I found it most productive for a number of months, and then, I just kind of reprogrammed my system, and I happened to look at that today because I was looking at some of my dowsing materials, and thank you so much, Sue, for having
You're welcome.
I've sat in one of Sue's classes before, so she does have quite a bit of charts, and she's correct. If you find her at her booth at the West Coast Conference or wherever she's speaking, she really does have a host of people coming to visit her. And I'd just like to say thanks for sharing, your whole process of dowsing for nearly 5 decades. It just started off with a simple article on dowsing. So for those of you who are interested in writing, this might be a prime opportunity. You never know who you're going to touch. And then decades later, Sue's writing many more books on her own and developing products that are helping other people. And we appreciate you just sharing your basic knowledge. Thanks for sharing your mentors and I would just say your peers that you learn from. And they learn from you and you learn from them, the late Carl Bracey, Joan McFarland. And it's just so beautiful. And it seems like you and Carol also are still collaborating with the Facebook Virtual Rain Dancer. Thanks for sharing and giving an upliftment to humanity, because we need that positive feedback. And we're all here to share and hopefully make the world a better place. You have a collection of stories, so thanks for sharing how, different stories, whether you're helping your kids find the right place to live or somebody in the plumbing business is looking for L-rods, but they call it a pipe locator. So if you are interested in any forms, visit Sue's website. Go see her at the West Coast Conference. And we appreciate you speaking for many decades and more to come. Thanks, Sue.
Thank you. Thank you. So now I'll get all the feedback from my friends. Thanks, Ed and Sharon.
You're welcome.
And be sure and hug your wife for me.
I will do that, definitely. It's been so fun to hear your voice and to listen to your excellent talk today. So thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Signing off. Time for me to sign off.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, and thanks for the reminder of being safe and prepared while we're all dowsing, and for the inspiration you gave us, Sue. And we'll see you at our next third Monday Water Dowsing Conference with Gary Platt, starting in April. Thanks, Sue, and everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.